In the heart of Forgotten Valley, where the road ended and dusk began, lay a village untouched by time. The air was thick with smoke and whispered secrets. Thatched roofs leaned into one another like old friends, and the red earth cracked beneath bare feet hardened by years of struggle. The world outside rarely came in, and those born here often never left. It was a place where tradition ruled like an invisible king, and dreams, if spoken aloud, were seen as curses. Among the huts and sunburnt fields lived Ameena, a girl whose beauty stirred more envy than admiration. But it wasn't her almond eyes or river black hair that made her special. It was the quiet strength she carried like a second skin. From the moment the rooster crowed, she was in motion, sweeping the dusty yard, boiling water over firewood, and helping her frail, widowed mother with every task imaginable. Her hands were callous, her clothes worn, yet her smile, when it came, was soft as rain after a drought. Villagers often said, "That girl has city eyes," meaning there was something in her gaze that reached beyond the hills. Ameena had never seen the city, not even in pictures, but she imagined it: tall buildings, bright lights, and schools with chairs instead of stones. While other girls practiced bridal dances or gossiped about dowries, she clung to her worn school books, teaching herself English under the moonlight. Her father's death had robbed the family of income and her of education, but not a hope. She wanted more, not riches or fame, but choices, the freedom to say no, to walk without eyes tracking her every move, to wake up one day and not be afraid of what the world had planned for her. But dreams were dangerous here. Girls who dared to dream were usually married off before those dreams could take root. And that was Ameena's greatest fear, that her life would be traded for a bag of rice and a handshake, that her voice would be drowned in wedding songs she never asked to hear. She carried that fear like a shadow, always behind her, whispering that no matter how hard she worked, someone else would always decide her fate. But what she didn't know was that fate had its own secrets, and it was watching her, waiting. It started with a cough, dry, persistent, and harmless at first. But within weeks, Ameena's mother was struggling to breathe, her one strong frame reduced to a trembling shadow. The herbs from the village healer did nothing. The real treatment lay in a town hospital, hours away, where money spoke louder than prayers. And money was something they simply didn't have. Ameena sold her only pair of bangles, then her mother's woven mats. Still, it wasn't enough. The neighbors offered pity, but not help. And when her uncle arrived, wearing his usual frown and smelling of tobacco, she knew trouble had come disguised as concern. "There's a solution," he said, voice low, like he was offering something sacred. "A man named Yusuf. He's quiet, keeps to himself. No bad habits. He's willing to marry you. He said he'll take care of the medical bills." Ameena blinked. "I don't even know him." Her uncle shrugged. "You don't need to. This isn't about love. It's about survival." The elders echoed him the next day, seated in the dusty courtyard like judges. They spoke in slow, heavy tones about duty, about sacrifice. They praised Yusuf for his willingness to marry without a dowry. "A rare kind of man," one of them said. "A godsend." But all Ameena could think was, why now? Why her? She protested, begged for time, promised to work harder, but their faces remained unmoved. Her mother, too weak to sit up, whispered from her mat, "Do what you must, child. If it saves me, I will sleep in peace." Those words shattered her. The next morning, she stood in front of the elders and nodded once. That was all it took, a wordless surrender. As she walked back to their hut, the wind seemed colder, the village smaller. Her chest felt tight, not from fear, but from a heavy silence that came when a dream was buried alive. And somewhere in that silence, the name Yusuf began to echo like a warning she didn't yet understand. Yusuf was unlike any man Ameena had ever known. Too quiet, too careful, like someone walking on a road only he could see. He spoke only when spoken to, and even then, his words were measured, deliberate, like he was constantly weighing what was safe to say. In a village where everyone knew everyone's business before sunset, Yusuf was a mystery wrapped in a worn tunic and silence. He lived in a small mud brick house at the edge of the village, alone, with no family, no visitors. He rose before dawn, worked until dusk, and never asked for help. Yet he helped others. He fixed broken fences without being asked, gave food to the old beggar woman without saying a word, and once carried a sick child to the next village's clinic. People respected him, but with an edge of unease. They called him good, but always followed it with strange. Rumors clung to him like shadows. Some said he was an orphan running from city debts. Others claimed he had once been rich, lost everything, and came here to hide from shame. A few whispered darker things, that he was hiding a past soaked in crime or tragedy. But Yusuf never corrected or confirmed anything. He simply worked, nodded politely, and kept his past locked behind his calm eyes. Ameena watched him with quiet curiosity. He never raised his voice, never forced her into conversations or expectations. Instead, he offered small gestures, a cup of tea on cold mornings, firewood chopped and stacked neatly, silence when she needed it most. There was something unsettling in his stillness, yet something deeply comforting, too. She didn't trust him. Not yet. But part of her wanted to know what he was hiding, and why a man so guarded could be so gentle. The wedding happened on a Friday, under the shade of a dying neem tree, with barely a dozen people in attendance. No music, no celebration. Just a quick prayer, stale sweets, and eyes full of pity. Ameena sat beside Yusuf, hands trembling in her lap, heart pounding like a caged bird. She didn't cry. She refused to. But inside, something folded into itself, quietly mourning the life she had imagined. That first night, she sat at the edge of the sleeping mat, arms folded, facing the wall. Yusuf didn't touch her. He offered her the blanket, then lay down with his back to her, as if he understood without needing to ask. The silence between them was thick, not tense, just unfamiliar, like two strangers sharing the same secret, but never speaking aloud. Days passed, then weeks. He never raised his voice, never demanded affection. He cooked on days she was too tired, and brought her tamarind sweets from the market without a word. One night, when she accidentally cut her finger while chopping vegetables, he wrapped it gently with a strip from his own shirt. She didn't say thank you, but the gesture stayed with her. They began to share quiet smiles. She laughed once, just once, when he tripped over a chicken and muttered something under his breath in a language she didn't recognize. He looked at her, startled, then smiled, and for a moment, the air between them warmed. But Ameena's heart refused to soften fully. Yusuf was kind, yes, too kind. His eyes sometimes drifted far away, as if haunted by places he refused to speak of. And the way he always kept a lockbox under his bed made her wonder, who was this man she'd been given to? And why did she feel like the truth was just outside her reach, waiting to strike? It began with the disappearances, unannounced, unexplained. Yusuf would be there one evening, sitting by the fire, quietly stirring lentils, and then gone by morning. No note, no warning, just an empty sleeping mat and the echo of his absence. Sometimes he'd return the next day. Other times it would be 2, 3 days, and each time he'd bring something, bags of rice, new sandals for her mother, medicine that wasn't available anywhere near the village. At first, Ameena said nothing. She didn't want to seem ungrateful, but questions brewed inside her like a storm. Where was he going? How was he affording all this when they lived so modestly? And why did he look more tired every time he came back, as if carrying something heavier than just travel dust? Then came the phone calls. Late at night, when the crickets were loud and the village quiet, she'd wake to the sound of his voice, low, urgent, in a language too polished to be native. English. Fluent, crisp English. Words she could barely understand, but tones she recognized. Command, strategy, negotiation. Business talk. Once, he said something about shares and international shipping delays. He ended the call the second she stirred. Her suspicions became aflame. One morning, when Yusuf had gone to the stream, Ameena found herself staring at the locked wooden box under the bed. Her heart beat wild as her fingers slid beneath it. To her surprise, the lock wasn't fastened, just closed. Inside was a sleek black suitcase. She opened it and froze. Inside were finely tailored suits, Western style, stitched with labels she had only heard of in foreign soap operas. Beneath the clothes lay bundles of crisp foreign currency, euros, pounds, and a slim leather wallet with a gold embossed card that read, Yusuf Khan, Executive Director. Ameena snapped it shut and pushed the box back, her hands trembling. Nothing made sense. That night, she pretended to sleep, and just past midnight, she heard again, his voice sharp and clear. No, the board doesn't make decisions without my approval. Tell London to wait. Her breath caught. London? Yusuf wasn't who he said he was. But then who was he? Ameena couldn't sleep, not with the suitcase under the bed, the English on the phone, the money that appeared out of nowhere. Her mind twisted around itself, trying to stitch logic into a story that refused to make sense. Was Yusuf some kind of fugitive? A scammer? Or something else entirely? She watched him closer now. How he moved, how he spoke, how he avoided her gaze when she asked even the simplest questions. Every time she came close to confronting him, something held her back. He was kind, always had been. He cared for her mother, never demanded anything from her, and never raised his voice. But was kindness enough to trust a man with secrets this big? One evening, she noticed him slipping away just after sundown. His steps were quiet, purposeful, heart racing. She followed at a distance, weaving through the shadows like a thief in her own life. He walked beyond the village outskirts, where no one ever went after dark. And that's when she saw it. A black SUV, sleek, polished, completely out of place in their world, parked under the trees. The headlights blinked as Yusuf approached. The driver, dressed in a suit, stepped out and opened the door for him. Yusuf entered without a glance back. Ameena's breath caught in her throat. What was a man like him doing with a car like that? The next day, she met her best friend, Salma, behind the well. Quietly, she told her everything. The phone calls, the suitcase, the SUV. Salma's eyes widened with alarm. Ameena, what if he's a criminal? Or worse, you could be in danger. I don't think you want to hurt me, Ameena said, though her voice betrayed her doubt. Secrets that big, Salma warned, never stay buried forever. That night, Ameena sat on her mat, staring at the shadows flickering across the wall. She couldn't wait for the truth to come to her. She had to find it herself. Yusuf had changed, not in the way he treated her. He was still gentle, still patient. But there was a new look in his eyes, like he knew she was watching more closely now, like he was carrying a truth too heavy to keep hidden any longer. One morning he told her, "We need to travel. My uncle is ill. I'd like you to come with me." Ameena hesitated, eyes narrowing. "Your uncle? You've never mentioned family." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "He lives far. We've been distant. It's time." She agreed, but her heart thudded with unease. It didn't feel like a visit to a sick relative. It felt like something else, something she couldn't name yet. They left the village at sunrise. Hours passed in silence until they reached a city she'd only heard of in school books. Towering buildings, paved roads, people in clothes too crisp to be farmers or laborers. And then Yusuf did something that shattered the last layer of normalcy. He pulled up to a luxury hotel. Glass walls, marble steps, a doorman who greeted him by name. Ameena froze. "Yusuf, this place?" He offered no explanation, just took her hand and led her inside. The suite was bigger than their entire house. A chandelier glittered above them. The floors were cold, polished stone. Yusuf handed over foreign bills at the front desk like it was nothing. Ameena stood by the window, watching the cars below, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. She turned to him, voice trembling. "Who are you, Yusuf?" He looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "I'll tell you everything, but not here. Not yet." Ameena's skin prickled. She was closer to the truth than ever, but the truth was taking its time. The city buzzed around them like a living thing, impossibly fast, loud, and alive in ways Ameena had never imagined. Her eyes darted from the glinting windows to the flashing signs, her senses overwhelmed by the constant motion. Yusuf sat beside her in the black SUV, silent, focused, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the leather seat. He hadn't said much since they left the hotel, but she could feel the storm inside him, building with every mile they drove. The car finally slowed in front of a glass and steel skyscraper that stretched so high it seemed to slice the clouds. Ameena leaned forward, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. At the base of the tower, in silver lettering, gleamed the name, Khan Global Holdings. She turned to Yusuf slowly. "Your name, that's your name." He simply nodded. "Come, there's something you need to see." The car door opened, and they were immediately greeted by two men in dark suits. "Good morning, Mr. Khan," one of them said, with a deep bow of his head. Ameena blinked. "Mr. Khan?" The respect in their voices wasn't casual. It was reverent. People inside the lobby turned to look, subtly but clearly recognizing him. Some even whispered as they passed. They stepped into a private elevator. Yusuf didn't touch a button. The elevator already knew where to go. Ameena stared at the polished walls, the silence between them heavy and tight. Her pulse thudded in her ears. The doors opened into a sprawling penthouse office. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a breathtaking view of the city. Expensive art lined the walls, and everything smelled of leather and power. Yusuf gestured toward a sleek black chair in front of a massive desk. "Sit," he said gently. "You deserve the truth now." Ameena lowered herself into the chair, her hands clenched in her lap. Yusuf took a long breath, pacing slowly behind the desk, as if choosing his words carefully. "I was born into this world," he began. "The wealth, the companies, the influence, it was all mine by birthright. But I left it because..." The doors burst open. A woman swept in, tall, commanding, dressed in a sharp suit and heels that clicked like thunder on the marble. Her accent was foreign, crisp with authority. "Mr. Yusuf Khan," she said urgently, "we have a problem." Yusuf stiffened. Ameena felt the air snap with tension. The woman continued, her tone unflinching. "Your father's was been challenged. The board knows you've married a village girl. They're calling it a scandal. Some believe it disqualifies you from your inheritance." Silence. Ameena's breath caught in her throat. Inheritance? Scandal? Her heart thudded against her ribs. She turned to Yusuf, whose expression had gone from soft to stone. He met her eyes for the first time in minutes, and in his gaze she saw something terrifying. Not regret, not guilt, but resolve. And suddenly, everything she thought she knew about her life, her marriage, and this man unraveled in an instant. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The world she'd entered had just cracked open beneath her, and the truth, whatever it was, had only just begun. To be continued. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of this unforgettable story. You won't want to miss what happens next.